Last night, unfortunately, was baseball's bitter end. I want to be painfully clear about this. Said on Twitter immediately after the game ended, I am proud of the fellas, okay? These guys fought valiantly. They fought hard. And honestly, as a competitor or as a fan of a team and players, both really, if you are in the arena, what you want to be able to say is at the end of the day, can I look in the mirror and can I objectively say to myself, I did everything that I could to try to accomplish my goals? And if you can do that, you'll avoid a life of regret. You will be able to sleep at night content and happy and not wondering what could have been. As a fan, you want the same thing. Now, it's impossible to really know that truth as a fan, but you want to feel as if your team did everything that it could to accomplish its goals. And I feel like this LSU team did, Jake. I feel like they pushed up against the barriers of their limitations, and ultimately they just had a ceiling that they couldn't break through, and it was pitching. Like the bats were excellent. What do they always say in baseball, though? Great pitching is going to beat great bats, and as great as LSU's bats were, well, LSU's pitching just left a bit too much to be desired but even then, like it wasn't that the pitchers weren't trying, right? No, they left everything they had on the table. It was just that their arms were ragged. They had nothing left.
No, I mean, they haven't really had much all season long. I mean, it has been a fight. They have had to piece it together. And we talked about the job that Jay Johnson had done all season long. And in a situation like this, you're trying to move every single piece, and you're having to be perfect when moving those pieces because of the limitations you currently have. Like, that obviously is going to be the point of emphasis, not only in this high school recruiting class that they signed, where they're going to fight, tooth and nail to get every player here. Obviously, there's a lot of MLB draft prospects, and we can break down exactly where that is in another segment. But also, like in the transfer portal, you're going to have to get a ton of arms, because some of those arms that you think are going to work aren't going to work. They're not going to play out. That's just the way it is. So you're going to have to stack arms. You still have a potent offense coming back. You still have Dylan Cruz. You still have Trey Morgan. You still have key pieces that are coming back to this team, right? And so, and players too, like, they'll continue to grow. They'll continue to get a year better.
Yeah, we saw, like Jay Johnson's going to have a good lineup. We know that, like, bottom line.
But you have to go get top tier arms. Like, you didn't have one guy this year that you felt like was a Friday night SEC, no doubt, draft choice.
And it's what we said coming into the match. When you were looking at LSU's kind of season as a whole and how they seeded this tournament, the ballast hanging around their seeding neck, even though it ended up being, quite a favorable draw, but the ballast was the 10-16 record against Quad 1 teams. And the main reason for that record, you could say it was the defense. I think pitching's more important. I think the defense just exacerbates bad pitching, so it's a bit of a perfect cocktail of bad in that regard. But, that's why you could not beat the best teams. And so that's why when you ran up against a Southern Miss team that has arms for days, remember, 7 guys with a sub-3 ERA coming into this thing with at least 30 innings pitched, you could not keep pace. Now, ultimately, though, this season will be lost to time because of this, right? You had a chance to go out there and make memories that would last. And look, if you're listening to the show, there's a good chance that you're like an LSU nerd, an LSU baseball nerd maybe even. And so you can be like, oh, well, T-Bob, that's crazy. I'm always going to remember this. And yes, you will. But in terms of the general public, right, this will be a season that is lost to time. And as I said yesterday, I used some harsh language. I said it's a failure in that regard. And that's all well and good. But I want to be painfully clear. My main takeaway from this season is not pessimistic. In fact, it's very optimistic. I think the future looks exceedingly bright. Yes, you had an elite lineup this year, and the elite lineup performed like an elite lineup should. They put up runs throughout the entire year. It was excellent. Had a few off nights, sure, but that's baseball. Everybody's going to. What I am so impressed by is the blood that you managed to squeeze from these stones of this pitching staff. You did everything it felt like you could to try to maximize the effectiveness. Here we are ripping this staff, right? And they were 4th in team ERA in the SEC throughout the entire year. And this comes on the heels of when LSU has had better staffs in recent years, and they finished, what, like 7th, 8th? So, like, ultimately, you always, and then at the end of the season, you look at, okay, where's the program going as a whole? How do I feel about the direction of the program? And that has to do with the head coach, like how you're going to feel solely relies there. And when you look at the coach, what do you want to see? Is he elevating the talent or is he dragging it down? And I think it is a pretty clear and obvious objective truth that Jay Johnson is elevating the talent. So you're like, okay, so if that's the case, he get the most out of his guys. The next big question is, can he get the guys? And right now, LSU has the #1 recruiting class in the country on the books, okay? So it's 2 major questions answered right there that prove why the future of LSU baseball feels so bright, even on a bitterly disappointing day as today.
Yeah, what was the stat you gave about Southern Miss and their pitchers? How many they had?
I think they had 7. They had 7 pitchers with a sub-3 ERA with at least 30 innings pitched.
Yeah, you know how many LSU had?
0.
They had 1.
Oh, they had 1 sub-3?
Because Paul Gervais ended up pitching more than 30 innings.
Hell yeah.
But it was because of his performance yesterday. So they only had 1, and that was if you're counting yesterday's game.
So real quick on Gervais, he was perfectly representative of both the staff yesterday and kind of the staff the entire year, right? Gervais yesterday, he was exhausted. His arm was spent. And he reminded me of the Captain America meme where he's like, it's kind of like he's wavering, he's bloodied, but he's like, I'm still down to fight. Like every single inning was a battle for Gervais. But he did his job, and he almost did it well enough. They just didn't quite have enough. I mean, Jake, when Dugas hit the home run, it felt like, oh my God, is this going to happen again? And again, then the margin for error in these things is so small, and LSU just didn't have enough from the mound. And
they had some opportunities, T-Bob, and
yeah, that's true.
One of the big ones was in the 7th. You get all the momentum. You get within 1 run. You've got a runner on first and second. And Tyler McManus, who had a great regional, he was on the all-regional team, they were never going to give him anything to drive.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire pitch sequence, they didn't give him anything. Everything was on the outer half, okay? And he got to a full count. He fought a couple of pitches off, but they were never going to give him anything to hit. And he kept chasing.
Yeah.
He kept chasing. Now he was, getting, barely a piece to stay alive, but you knew it was coming. He swings away. Obviously, he's nowhere close to it. And, that felt like a huge moment in that game. Even though you tied it up later with Gavin Dugas, it still felt like a huge moment. And then after that, in the 9th, you see 4, 5, 6 coming up. You still feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I mean, especially how this has gone.
Like Cade Doty in the regional, I don't know, he's been as hot as anyone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he hits a sharp ground ball, gets stopped there. Okay, you still have Trey Morgan. Trey Morgan does what he never does, which is pull a baseball, hits it to the second baseman, and then you've got Jordan Thompson. Jordan Thompson still has home run power, and then he strikes out. I mean, you felt like it was coming, but it just never materialized. And some of the at-bats you can kind of point to and say, okay, here's the moment when you had an opportunity to take advantage of the momentum you had, because when Gavin Dugas hits that home run, even with the 7th inning not going your way, you feel like you should have got more out of that. You feel like, okay, well, you've got Razelman. You'll take that every time.
Yeah, for sure. You didn't hate this. You didn't hate the spot.
No, you didn't hate
the
spot. And then, you come in, you got the first guy down 0-2, give up a single. Next guy, you got him 1-2, miss your location again, you give up another single. And so it's just like those small little things. You had your opportunities, you had your chances, they were right there. Southern Miss took advantage of them, and you weren't able to.
Yeah, so that's where you have to tip your cap to the opponent, for sure. I mean, if LSU had gone through the same path that Southern Miss did to win this regional, we would be playing Eric Pride's Call on Me, beating our chest, like all that dumb stuff today. Because what they did was fantastic. It showed mental toughness. It showed perseverance. It showed leadership. It showed an ability to not get down. I mean, remember, Jake, after suffering the haymaker, make no mistake, that was an all-time haymaker. That was like Deontay Wilder knocking Tyson Fury to the ground and then Tyson Fury somehow sitting up from the dead back in the day when LSU comes back to win that game in the 9th. to come back from that haymaker and then, Jake, be on the ropes against Kennesaw. I mean, dead to rights against Kennesaw. Come back, win that game, beat LSU in the first elimination, and then follow up on. I mean, it's as impressive as what LSU did last year, where they basically did the exact same rhythm in Eugene, where they were on the ropes in that first elimination game. They came back and beat Oregon 2 games in a row. So credit to Southern Miss, man. They played well, and well, quite frankly, they were the better baseball team.
Yeah, and you're gonna feel like you had a missed opportunity because you had all that magic. And look, sports is just this way. It's cruel. We're going to forget about it.
Yeah.
In a month, we're not going to talk about the amazing comebacks that LSU baseball had. If they finish it, it lives in lore forever. But we're not going to talk about it because you don't finish the job. And you had an opportunity to have postseason baseball back in Baton Rouge, kind of like the year they had Florida State in the Super. You weren't expecting it. It happens. You have all this momentum. And then Florida State came in there, and Florida State beat you as well. It's like, you had this chance, you had this opportunity. It would have been storyline through. I mean, everywhere you turn, it would have been a storyline. With Ole Miss coming back, they just swept you in Baton Rouge a couple of weeks ago. The whole Bianca, like all of that would have been a great storyline. You had all that in front of you, and you're not able to get there. So all the clout that you built up in that regional, sadly, will probably be forgotten.
Well, it's funny because to me, now that we're on the other side of it, the comebacks more than anything represent that LSU was a little fluky to begin with to be in the driver's seat in this regional, right? It's kind of what we said going into yesterday's game, which is that, for 26 of the 28 innings, they have not played great. They had these 2 very bright flashes of greatness, and it put them in the catbird seat, but ultimately they could not make that flash consistent enough. Though I mean, look, make no mistake. Like I said at the very beginning of this thing, this is not a criticism of effort or anything along those lines. The boys played their ass off. As cliche as this is, I truly believe they left it all on the field. And most importantly, I truly believe in Jay Johnson and the direction of this program. And Jay Johnson he has not tried to hide that LSU is playing catch up here. They have to catch up to Tennessee and Mississippi State and Ole Miss and all of these other schools. But guess what? Tony Vitello's in year number 5, okay? It takes time. I talked about it in the football analogy all the time, right? Everybody wants to be Alabama. Alabama's landing humans on Mars, okay? You have to build the space station first. You have to build an international space station that floats in the air. You have to be able to go to the moon. Like, there are steps to this process. And Jay Johnson, in terms of what he's done, this was a very good first year. Maybe he did colonize the moon this year in this analogy. So, yes, I believe that Jay Johnson is the guy to get LSU to or back to that elite realm.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. This isn't sitting and looking at the program and thinking, oh, my gosh, man, you are so far away. I think you have the right guy in place.
Yeah.
I mean, you win more SEC games than you did. You were right there as far as potential host. You win a game in the SEC tournament. You sweep a couple of really good teams. You take 2 or 3 for some good teams on the road. And it was really pieced together. Like, again, going back to it, it's like when you look at this and you only had one pitcher who pitched over 30 innings who had a sub-3 ERA, like, you found a way to win baseball games. And you have this elite recruiting class, and we're going to get to it in the next segment, where those guys fall in the Major League Draft as far as what their rankings are. Are they going to come to campus? Are they going to go to the draft? Obviously, you've got 2 guys that are on your current team that are going to the draft. Just you can't blame them where they're slotted.
Yeah.
But you still feel good about the momentum. You feel good about what Jay Johnson's done and where he's going as well. So, like, the baseball program as a whole, I think you feel really good about it. But you can still be disappointed with the opportunities that they had, even with the limitations they had.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair because they were on the cusp, and they lost it on the cusp. One last thing on Jay Johnson that I think is important to point out is this team was good where Jay Johnson is supposed to be good, right? Like, he is supposed to be a development hitting mastermind. And I believe that you saw that this year when you look at the improvement for guys from last year and you just look up some of the stupid numbers that some of these guys ended up putting up. And what I mean by that is sometimes you'll see a coach, and maybe they're like an offensive mind, but they inherit a team with a great defense, and the offense falters, but the team does good because of the defense. That can be a potential long-term red flag. Like, why wasn't that side of the ball better if that's what they're supposed to be good at? Jay Johnson is supposed to be a hitting development guy, and, well, the development and the hitting were excellent this year. So, and look, Jason Kelly, I think, did a good job with the staff. Just need to give him some better clay with which to mold, and that is coming. Well, let's talk about that next. Here on Off the Bench, as Jake has the green felt tip pin out, that when you know it is getting serious. He is logging notes about maybe who you'll be seeing in Alec Box next year. Let's break it down here on OTB. Okay, Jake, so a lot of the talk in the chat is obviously about, yes, he has a ton of elite arms lined up in this next recruiting class, Hebe and Jay Johnson. But what do you but who will actually show up on campus? Because the arms are so elite that they are being threatened to be poached by the MLB. Now, again, one part of this that is fascinating to me, Jake, and I don't even know how much we can talk about it now because I don't know how much information we have now, but that is, how committed is the LSU booster base to baseball? And the point in that being, now that you can get paid, like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, these, okay, yes, these are some high-level arms, but, like, if you want the college experience, you want to go be the big man on campus, and you still want to make money, and arguably set yourself up even better to make the pros, right? Like, sometimes guys' best paths to the pros are not through the minors. Sometimes college, I mean, Jay Johnson will argue that vehemently. He might be biased, but he will, that college baseball is a better pathway to eventually playing in the big leagues. But now that you can make money, like, it does muddy these decisions a bit more. Where if I'm a draft pick, and granted, I don't think you're going to be able to make like $2 million, but you know, give me like $500K, and it's and you know, way better facilities, a way better just setup to kind of learn the next step of baseball. Then maybe you get more of these guys. But again, I think, like, I don't know how to answer that right now, Jake, because I just don't know what the baseball NIL money is.
Well, NIL is a portion. Do not get it wrong. NIL is a portion. LSU cares a lot about baseball. LSU, in my opinion, is going to have, as far as NIL money put away for baseball. I mean, we look, you drive around town, I'd be willing to say you see more baseball ads than LSU football ads.
Yeah, you see, that's true. You've seen quite a bit.
And certainly, like, small deals. Like, if you get on an app like Matchpoint and you can see the deals, way more baseball activity than any other sport. So I do think that there is, you know, NIL deals for baseball players, and that certainly plays into it. But I was having this conversation with Todd Walker yesterday. He's like, you know, look, like my path, like I was a 50th round draft choice out of high school. I go to school, I'm the 8th overall pick after I go to school. And he said, like, that's an argument, you know, and some of these guys won't be in that case. He goes, but also, do you want to be 18 years old, traveling by bus 8 hours,
That's
10
what I'm
hours,
saying, yeah.
12 hours for 6 years until you get to the big leagues? Or do you want to go to a place like LSU for 2 or 3, depending on how old you are, 2 or 3 years, fly everywhere you play, not drive a bus.
Sick locker room.
Right?
Like sick stadium.
You got the best of everything.
Facilities, yes, yeah.
And you have the added benefit now of making that money. And he said, when you talk to MLB scouts, it's flipped on its head a little bit. Used to, they wanted the phenom 18-year-old that was going to be the project and what could be. Now they want to know what they're getting. They want a better idea. They want to go to the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC. They want to see the player for 2 or 3 years that hit top-tier pitching for 3 years.
Yes.
And a guy that he faced on Friday and Saturday that he's probably going to face on Friday and Saturday in the big leagues.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they? I mean, as a scout, more information is better. It's just what you want, like it, because it in theory it lessens risk, and that's what this all is. That's what scouting talent is risk assessment. And how about this, Jake? From a base human standpoint, it's much different going to a bar and saying, "Oh, I played third base for the San Jose Chili Dogs."
I was going to go
versus,
I was going to go Salt Lake City Bees.
That's a real one, I'm assuming.
Pretty sure it's a real one.
Okay. Or
the El Paso Chihuahuas.
There you go. Okay, I played third for the El Paso Chihuahuas versus I was just all SEC and I'm here at Fred's and everybody thinks I'm the man. Like, it's like, it is a vast difference just from a social standpoint as well.
I mean, Dylan Cruz is big man on campus.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a couple of baseball guys. And look, LSU, again, going back to it, is a place that cares a lot about baseball, so you're in better standing than even a team that's better than you on the field. Like, just the attention that you're going to get. And I don't mean that like everybody look at me attention, because Dylan Cruz doesn't seem like that. But I'm talking about attention just as far as the experience that you get, the opportunities that you get. And so they'll have a shot. They'll have a shot at some of these guys, and I'm sure Hunt's going to do a fantastic job. I don't say that in jest.
Yeah, start laying out the guys.
Hunt's probably going to do a great job. He's going to have all the latest and greatest. But when you take kind of a look, okay, the guys on your team that are underclassmen that are going to go to the draft. You got Jacob Berry, who's the 7th overall prospect, according to MLB.com.
Yep.
Okay, we've known Jacob Berry's going to be gone since before he really got here. You go down the list as far as guys that are here. K. Doty's 55th on this list. So
Doty was so clutch this
season. He was so clutch. K. Doty was a very good high school player. Somebody that you thought at that time, okay, is he going to get drafted? Decides to come to LSU, play with his brother, all that. We all know the storylines. And so when you're 55th, pretty good chance you're not coming back to school either. Now, could you improve on that?
Well, but that's kind of interesting, right? Because maybe it's different in baseball, and I just don't realize.
He's a redshirt sophomore.
Because like a guy who is a second-round draft grade in football is actually very incentivized to return, because you could potentially get to first round. And if you do, you are talking about millions upon millions of dollars of difference.
Right.
Is it similar to the 55th baseball prospect?
Well, you would still have years that you could come back. So Cade will have it because of the pandemic year.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand eligibility anymore, to be honest.
No, I mean, in baseball, it's one of the hardest. But because of the pandemic year and their season getting cut short, he will have leverage that typically you won't have in college baseball, because he is listed as a redshirt sophomore. So he would have multiple seasons available to him. So I guess it'd be one to watch. I mean, he could improve on that. And again, this is just a list. He could be 25th on someone's list.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you don't know until you get drafted. So those are two guys that are on your current roster that you have to pay attention to, outside of the guys that you know you're going to lose because they are seniors. Going down the list, you got Justin Crawford, who's Carl Crawford's son, 13th overall prospect. He's an outfielder. He's committed to you. Okay, 13th overall. You know what kind of tools he has. I once shared a field with his father where we were getting ready for the NFL Combine, and we're running our 40s. And at the time, the Red Sox and Rays and a bunch of players were working out there. He kind of comes out there, hey, what are y'all doing? We're running 40s, Carl. Can I try? Yeah. And he goes out there and runs like a 4.48, like just raw.
What?
You know what I mean? Like no like training. Like, hey, let me get down real quick. Boom, 4.48.
Okay, so 13th overall, I mean, you probably should be gone there, right? But is there the idea that, like, financially, because of his father, maybe he's not sweating it too bad? Maybe he wants some college experience? I'm grasping at straws here, dude. I mean, Carl Crawford did play in the bigs for a long time, though.
Oh, he made a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so we'll go down this list.
13 years, actually.
Mikey Romero, 62nd overall. He is an infielder. You go down, Paxton King, 102nd overall. He's an outfielder. Tucker Tillman is an infielder, 42nd overall. Brady Neal, Jared Jones, both catchers, 185th, 193. You continue to go down the list. Gavin Guidry, 67th overall. He's an infielder. And then you get to the pitchers. Obviously, that's what a lot of people want to know about. Chase Shores, 127th overall on MLB.com. You've got Robbie Snelling, a left-hander, 16th overall in MLB.com's draft rankings. Then Michael Kennedy, 87th overall. So you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11 guys you're going to be sweating. Just from the high school signing class.
Who gave us the quote, though, that was it you? Somebody said, okay, LSU right now has the number one recruiting class in the country with 14 commits. They said if half of those guys show up, you would still be the number one recruiting class.
Yes.
There you go.
I think
I'll take that. I
I
don't think you're going to lose over 50% of this class.
The stat is like you have 13 guys in this class that are the top guy in their position in their state. I mean, something ridiculous. Like the numbers that just keep coming out from this recruiting class. And you're right. And look, there's some great players in here. I would love to get Crawford. You'd love to get Romero. You'd love to get all these players on campus. But when you look at it and you look what LSU has, get Jaden Newt, who's 75th overall. He's a pitcher. Go get Chase Shores. He's a pitcher. Go get Robbie Snelling. Go get the arms.
Yeah.
You've got offense. You still got guaranteed. You've got Morgan. You've got Cruz. You have some bats. Pearson was fantastic.
Yeah, Pearson's
he's the next one. Like you're probably getting Joe Bear back, right? Because everybody has like so many years of eligibility. It doesn't matter. This is, like everybody's got eligibility.
I just assume, just in the post-COVID era, just assume they have eligibility until they don't. Like Mikhail Hilliard has finally.
Yeah, he's like, he might be him and Fontenot are like the only ones. And in the chat, a lot of people saying, okay, well, could Dylan Cruz go somewhere else? Could he transfer? From everything I've ever heard about Dylan Cruz, he loves LSU as much as anyone loves LSU. Like when you hear the backstories, you hear about everything he's done to try to make this team the best team that it possibly could be. He talks about his experience.
Giving up his scholarship.
He still loves the fact that he chose to come to LSU over the draft and the experience that he's had. Jay Johnson and him have a fantastic relationship. That's not something that's a worry to me right now.
And he's improved his stock.
Yeah,
College
absolutely.
baseball has been.
That's what they were talking about on the broadcast. It's like, not many times can you have the fanfare coming in like a Dylan Cruz and actually improve your stock. Like it's very hard to do because of the expectations and because you think that the ceiling, which is incredibly high, has already been met, and he is. He's since blown past that. So
I do want to give some props to Trey Morgan too. Alvamar's wanted says you'll get a healthy Morgan. He'll be much better next year. Morgan got lost in the shuffle a bit this year, and it's a testament to how otherworldly he was last year. That you can hit over 300 and get kind of forgotten and make all the plays that Morgan did defensively. But he was great this season, and we just have not mentioned him much on this show because he was so consistent and so solid. And I want to credit him because he was doing it on one leg. And far too often, I think on this side of the equation, we don't grade guys on a curve when they are leaving it all on the line for their team. It's like I said, Cleveland ran Baker and Jarvis out of town, and those are two guys that put their body on the line for the town.
Yeah.
And so I want to give credit to Trey Morgan for everything that he did fighting through that pain and the injury and doing everything that he could for this team.
No, that's a great point, and I'm glad someone brought that up in the chat because we all saw the knee brace. He had a giant knee brace under his pants all season long. Yeah. He was not the same player. Every time he ran to first, I could feel it through the TV. Yeah. You felt the pain that man had running to first base every single time, and he had to change his game because of the injury. Now, he still played his elite defense, but he's a guy that stole bags last year, and he didn't have a single one this year because he couldn't.
Yeah.
He was getting pinch ran for in certain situations because he was so limited. It probably took away from his power as well. The home run numbers weren't there. Well, he changed his game and continued to master his craft, I should say. He's going the other way. He's hitting the ball in gaps. He still hit well over 300.
Yeah,
even on one leg. And it's because he changed what he possibly could do. He went out there and did it. He couldn't be the player that he was his freshman season.
Yeah.
Now, he was still a damn good player, but it had to be different because of his injury. And so, a guy like that can kind of conform his game to, what his body is telling him he can and can't do.
Speaks to a very high talent.
Take your cap to it. And you never heard him complain about it either. Like in interviews, you never heard him say, well, if my knee was right. It was none of that. So, for sure you need to give him a shout-out and something that we need to do a better job of talking about.